Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up the USA View. Supreme Court takes LGBTQ book ban case. Potentially game-changing case about LGBTQ inclusion in classrooms is now before the U.S. Supreme Court. The case, Mohammed v. Taylor, was brought by Christian and Muslim parents who object to LGBTQ-themed books being used in a Maryland school district. These parents, backed by the conservative Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, are asking the court to require schools to notify them before their children are taught any material they believe contains, quote, instructions on gender and sexuality in violation of their parents' religious beliefs, end quote. They also want the right to opt their kids out of such lessons. If the Supreme Court sides with the parents, it could effectively introduce a nationwide "don't say gay" rule. The decision could make it nearly impossible for teachers to freely discuss queer themes without needing to warn parents and possibly exclude students from class discussions. Critics say this would set a dangerous precedent of elevating one group's religious objections above all others. As legal scholars note, the Constitution doesn't permit schools to provide accommodation to one faith, in this case, parents with anti-LGBTQ religious beliefs, when it doesn't provide those same accommodations to other faith or non-faith groups. Now, with a 6-3 conservative supermajority, the court's decision in Mohammed v. Taylor could determine whether LGBTQ plus identities are welcome in public education or erased entirely. The first reaction I had reading this, is the court, they're making a big thing about being Christian and Muslim. That's a specific tactic the far right is using to try and create more Islamophobia in this country. Let's be very clear. Yes, they found one or two Muslim parents for this, and they put their name up first. That's designed to create more division within our community. We've right from the get-go, I just want to call that out. That being said, the don't say gay stuff that the Supreme Court's trying to do, it's absolutely scary, and I have a feeling they're going to try and do it. I was a substitute teacher, back 15 years ago. My parents were I've done every job during the Great Recession. I am, girl. I am.
Well, what grade?
High school.
Okay.
So I literally subbed at my old high school after grad school because I had nothing better to do. My parents were teachers, go be
teach.
a sub. And they were both teachers. So as someone who's dealt with teaching and all that, how do you actually implement what they were? Gender and sexuality, so you can't talk about boys or girls as well. You can't do any of that stuff. And that most schools have for a long time would just have you sign one form at the beginning of the year because you had to for health class for this sort of stuff. So the fact that they're trying to do this weird extreme thing for every instance, I'm that's not practical. You're going to end up and then the kids that are put in that situation, because there are plenty of teachers that'll find clever ways around anything. You're just going to have them sit outside the class every now and then. That's just going to ostracize the kids. And all the other kids are going to be haha, you have to sit out here. We're going to talk about fun stuff.
No, and guess what? That kid is still going to find out about all the stuff that they talked about inside the classroom that he was not allowed to hear. Right? Because there's this thing called the internet, right?
Well, and also the bus home from school.
And also other kids.
Right.
Of course, And I feel bad for the teachers, right? Because again, you came from a family of teachers, Alex, okay? There has to be some passion, all right? Some commitment to teaching, to education, to want to do it because you don't get paid shit. All right. So there's got to be something more for you to have to do that. Right. So these poor teachers that are already getting underpaid, right, can't say if they themselves are gay or put a family picture of them if they're gay. They also can't talk about religion, gender, love, sex. I mean, what can you talk about? Right. You're already erasing history. Right? When you talk about Christopher Columbus, right, discovering the Americas when he didn't, right? You can't discover a place that was already inhabited. But, you're going to be, so you're teaching lies, but you're also keeping them away from the truth. I mean, I'm in upside down world. Explain this to me, Edward.
Well, I wish someone would explain it to me. I mean, isn't that what a teacher is? To basically give you facts and information that is correct, So, when I'm disturbed also by hearing words like instructions on gender and sexuality going against their religious parents' religious beliefs, I think it was. But, we're not writing books on instructions on how to be LGBTQ plus. Right. We're writing books that people like us can identify with in terms of characters and storylines. Right. It has nothing to do with any of that. This is what we're really talking about, especially in the grade schools.
Right. And how far did this go? You know, what if a religious fringe group says, well, we don't think the Holocaust was real. We don't want our kids to be taught that. Yeah. What if they don't want to be taught about the history of this country and some of the less wonderful things that we've done?
Listen,
that's far scarier and weirder to teach a kid than the fact that two mommies love each other.
Exactly. And imagine that indigenous kid in a classroom learning about Christopher Columbus, knowing that that's not really the truth.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, what a mind screw that is. I mean,
when I read this story, I was thinking, what can we even talk about boy and girl? Can we even say
exactly?
Because it's like, shouldn't it go across the board?
Of course.
Yeah.
It should be equal, right? I mean,
and at the end of the day, not everyone's Christian, Ron.
Nope.
Right? So you just basically set a standard, right? If you're Christian, then we'll fight for you, and we've got to have that in the classroom. But any other religion, no.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense.
Make it make sense, folks. Make it make sense. That is the big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.